Hey everyone, Dan here. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button and keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, put in the work for yourself, and make your decisions based on that. Enjoy. Alright folks, here we are just before market close on Thursday, August 3rd. We're going to take a look at SoFi. We will come back and take a look at the chart after we look at the data, but I realized it has been a long time since we looked at anything like analyst ratings, short selling info, that sort of thing. So I thought we would do a little bit of that today. And then, like I said, a quick recap on the chart itself. So short interest here on Webull, and we'll flip over to a few tabs that I have open in a minute. We see days to cover increasing here. Now this was a couple of weeks ago. It hasn't been updated since the 14th of July. And you see short interest sort of peaking here and then kind of plateauing a bit, but days to cover staying a bit high, headed in toward that earnings report. So interested to see what has happened, if short interest has increased as a result of the big jump that we saw in the earnings report, or the price action that we saw after the earnings report, I should say, and if that has contributed to the drawdown that we've seen since that date. Now, there have been a few analyst ratings that have come out, and you have a few here, but I was thinking that some things that could help SoFi, as it, like I said, has drawn down the last few days, would be if we got some additional positive analyst ratings that came out to help sort of solidify the price action and potentially stabilize it or turn it around. But let's flip over. Now I try to find sort of an aggregator so that I didn't have to have 1,000 tabs open. So we're gonna do market beat for a few different things. Then I do have 3 other tabs to look at, but I don't know if they've done sort of any updating since earnings. But as they have it, analyst rating of hold, 13.8% downside per the analyst price target, 863. Like I said, I don't know if that has changed since, and I don't recall exactly where. I feel like, oh, there it is. Okay. Okay, so Webull has it here at $9.99. Maybe that's more up to date. I'm not sure. But they also have hold based on 18 rankings. So this is always where we, the reason I end up previously with like 1,000 tabs open is because there's just varied data at different sites, which is frustrating. But so it goes. Short interest, bearish, 15% of the float being sold short. We'll take a sort of closer in view of these things in a minute. Insider trading, generally selling shares. Again, I don't know if that has continued to be the case based on the earnings that have come out or how up to date that is. Probably not up to date enough. So starting with the analyst ratings. So again, this is pulling in 16, it says. Webull has 18, so it might be more like 9.99, like Webull says. If we look at the insider trades, so we do see here over the last 12 months. So this is a little less critical for like, is this up to date as of today, or is it the last 2 weeks or something like that? Because this is pulling in the last 12 months. So insiders buying over the last 12 months, 1. Number of insiders selling, 6. I mean, this is also just what happens. I've also been part of a startup that IPO'd, and this is just what happens. People accumulate equity in the company before it goes public so that they can sell it. So, like, that is a big perk of taking the risk of being at a startup, knowing that most of them don't end up going public. But in any case, that can put pressure on the stock depending on the quantity that's being pushed out. Now, this does only account for 2.7% of ownership. Now, what I think is more interesting is the institutional ownership, which has had an uptick in the last 12 months. So number of institutional buyers, 344, sellers, 172. And you see there's quite a big difference here, about 170 million dollars in the last 12 months. So that's great to see. This accounts for almost a third of a SoFi ownership. So that's something that's like much more interesting to me. So that says to me that in and of itself could be a great stabilizer of the stock. Again, this goes back a whole year. So who knows what that looks like sort of more recently. But we can come down here and see that buying and selling by quarter, Q2 2021 was a big time period. So that was quite a while ago at this point. And that obviously wouldn't be factored into these numbers because that was forever ago. So we see, Q4 was where most of it happened over the last 4 quarters. So, it has slowed down a little bit, but the price has also been on an uptick. So sort of having to try to gauge those two things and see how they interplay with each other. Short interest, like it said, 15.1, I think it said. Where does it say it here? 15.1%. So here's outstanding shares. Here's the size of the float. This is short percentage of the float. But we do see, if we come down here, that it has been sort of kind of stabilizing / increasing a little bit. So a slight increase from June 30th to July 15th. But it has sort of gone down between June 15th and July 15th. So still relatively high, I would say. And we'll look at the cost to borrow and stuff like that in a second. Days to cover here, you see a 2.3 and a slight uptick from the previous report. So the next one is hopefully coming any day now, and we'll see what it looks like. But nothing like a huge increase like this yet. But again, because there was that jump after earnings, historically, if I'm going purely off of memory here, I didn't look this up before the video, but because this is stream of consciousness, obviously. But if I'm recalling correctly, I believe previous periods when we've seen big upticks due to IPO, due to good reactions to earnings, that is often on the back of that uptick. We've seen short sellers come in pretty hot and heavy, and presumably play some role in the subsequent downturn. You see some big ones here, right? So we'll see if anything like that kind of rears its ugly head again. No pinwheel of death, please. All right, so going over to iBorrowDesk, we're going to take a look at the cost to borrow. Now, this is coming just from interactive brokers. So, there is more to this story for sure. But as we see today, for example, these go in 15-minute increments. Not much movement or no movement at all. There is a little bit of movement in the fee. The fee is, very, very small to borrow these shares, but there's no movement. There's no one borrowing shares to short. So, if this is an indicator, again, it is just from one broker though, this could mean that there isn't a big piling on of short sellers at the moment, and maybe the recent downturn is due to just some folks or some institutions locking in some profit, shifting some money, maybe some rebalancing of accounts happening after. Who knows? But this seems to indicate maybe we won't see a big uptick from, oh goodness gracious, from that 15.1% that we saw when it was last reported. Max Pain, something we looked at before. I thought tomorrow's Friday, so the degree to which you put any weight on Max Pain. Right now, MaximumPain.com has it at $10. This is for the maturity of the 4th, which is tomorrow. So we'll see if that plays a factor. I know it's something we've talked about in previous videos quite a few times. Fail to delivers. We saw some upticks toward the middle of July, but there hasn't been an update since then. It does say here, if all shares were delivered on a particular day, then there will be no entry on the table. Now, I don't know if this is just sort of data that's, always 3 or 4 weeks old or something. And so maybe just we don't get an update yet, or maybe 7.14 was updated today. I don't know. But it was sort of, there's a few blips on here that are quite large, but nothing that we would sort of like be able to couple with huge upticks in short selling and then maybe some sort of issue with short sellers plus failed to delivers combining to put additional pressure on the stock like we have seen in years gone by. So that's our look at the data. Let's take a look at the charts here. So today, we'll start off on the 10-minute actually. Seeing a nice push here into close. Maybe going to be mostly a flat day. We've got about 3 minutes left. But these levels that we put in, they're doing their job. So we had 985 in. This came down to 986 today. So within a penny. So that's great to see. And, you know, otherwise we're just kind of in between these levels. Like I had said in yesterday's video, we're in this gap. And to me, I was hoping that we would just kind of like fill the gap, be done with it, and sort of carry on. We're obviously not going to fill the gap today. If it does want to fill this gap now or in the near future, 960 is the level, I believe, to fill it. And we haven't quite done that yet. So I don't know if it'll continue to play a factor or not. Like I had said before, maybe that will be enough, or at least enough for now. And, you know, we'll revisit it when the time comes. But on Thinkorswim, this is again on the 10-minute, which doesn't do you a lot of good since you're watching this video after the market has closed. So we'll flip over to the daily. We were talking the last video about it pulling into the center line, which now sits at 952. It's gotten relatively close to it, but it's holding nice and steady in this uptrend range. So it is still considered to be in a bullish trend based on this study that I have on Thinkorswim. So we'll see if it's able to hold in here. Good news in my mind is, you know, it's in channel. It's not extended far out and just sort of like awaiting a pullback. The question that I have at the moment is it going to need to come down and touch that 952 midline? And again, that 952, that number will change because that varies day to day as the price action accumulates. So we'll see if it needs to do that. But if it did come down to 952, that would both account for touching the midline here and then also filling that gap. So not that I want to see the price come down, but if it needs to, it needs to. Like I said before, I'd rather just get it done with and carry on and go from there. All right, folks, I hope that you had a good trading day and that you finish off the week strong tomorrow. And as always, I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next video.